politicians across the globe have made the same aggressive promise to bring manufacturing back home by taxing the life out of foreign imports. In the United States, Donald Trump made it a core piece of his platform. The message was simple: if you don't build your factories in America, we're going to hit you with massive tariffs. Across the Atlantic, European leaders like Emmanuel Macron adopted a nearly identical stance, pushing local-first mandates to shield their domestic industries from outside competition. The assumption was that these legislative walls would force China out of Western markets. Instead, they acted as a trigger, activating a strategic playbook Beijing has been refining for over 20 years to bypass the system entirely. Faced with the threat of being locked out, China simply agreed to the terms. But rather than surrendering their market share, Chinese corporations began building their own factories inside those newly protected borders. Chinese companies invested $190 billion building physical operations abroad, which generated $1.5 trillion in global revenue. Of that, companies paid just $100 billion in local taxes. The massive remainder of that profit flowed directly back to Beijing. The label on the box might say Made in the USA or Made in Europe, but the financial reality is made by China, turning local protectionist policies into global profit engines. The momentum behind this outward expansion is driven by a domestic crisis. China has become too efficient at manufacturing for its own survival. They built so many factories that they triggered an overcapacity crisis. The local market simply cannot absorb everything being made, causing local prices to plummet and stalling out the property market. They have literally run out of domestic consumers to buy their steel, their electronics, and their solar panels. Unable to sell at home, Beijing faced a choice: dump their products at a massive loss, or export the actual factory infrastructure. This global expansion is a necessary release valve, allowing China to offload its crushing industrial weight into foreign markets. This strategy follows a deliberate state directive initiated around the year 2000, known as going overseas. Under leaders like Jiang Zemin, Beijing began preparing for the moment Western markets would try to close. Phase 1 of the plan was simple: invite foreign capital into China to learn their manufacturing secrets. Through aggressive reverse engineering, Chinese industry learned to replicate Western technology faster and cheaper than the original creators. Phase 2 is the current execution, taking that master technology and moving operations outside China's borders to build directly inside the economies of their rivals. The West handed China the blueprints for industrial dominance, and now China is using them to outcompete the creators on their own soil. In America, Chinese firms are using high-tech partnerships to hide in plain sight. For example, Ford is building a battery plant in the US, but the core technology and design are licensed directly from the Chinese giant CATL. In Europe, the tactic focuses on industrial revival. Chinese companies are taking over defunct factories, like the cherry plant in Spain, and restarting the assembly lines under Beijing's control. In the global south, however, the approach is less about partnership and more about displacement. Cheap Chinese goods are used to wipe out local competitors before they can even gain a foothold. The impact on local labor is severe. In Indonesia, the garment sector has seen massive layoffs because local factories cannot survive against a flood of below-cost textiles. No market is safe, from high-end American batteries to emerging market textiles. This factory colonization is a universal threat. This model challenges the long-held assumption that all incoming foreign direct investment is good for a host nation. This chart compares two extraction models. On the left, U.S. tech giants siphon digital ad revenue from global users back to Silicon Valley. On the right, Chinese manufacturing siphons physical factory profits from global workers back to Beijing. China has successfully hacked physical infrastructure to act like a digital monopoly, extracting maximum wealth while using local resources. Host countries are left fighting over a few low-level assembly jobs, while their domestic industries are hollowed out. 20th century tariffs are useless against an opponent operating from inside your own borders. To survive this, both developed and developing nations must abandon isolated trade wars and create a unified, systemic defense strategy. In a world of factory colonization, welcoming foreign investment without strict systemic safeguards is no longer a simple economic win. It is a Trojan horse.